Hello friends, you can probably do more pull-ups than even you realize, and there's a few things you can do to unlock your hidden potential, and we'll start from the lowest hanging fruit and go to the highest, and one of them should work for you, but please don't be too angry if they don't. Now first of all, if you can do under 2 pull-ups, so if your pull-ups look kind of like this, and then you go down and you can do another one, then you might benefit from doing some easier variations that are either easy progressions or assisted first. Now, depending on your form, you can still do your regular pull-ups first, that'll be good practice. Do a couple of them, do as many as you can, but afterwards, try to get in a little bit more reps with easier variations. This may help you practice your pulling motion more, just like someone learning an instrument might get better faster if they practice more. You're leveling up your software as well as your hardware, so boom, psh. But this will also let you get more volume and time under tension, which can be important for muscle growth and strength. And look, if you can't do a pull-up yet, don't sweat it too much. We all start somewhere, and there are some very strong people who once couldn't do a pull-up either. There are many different types of pull-ups, so you can do pull-ups, my friend, and you can find one that works for you, which makes sense because let's say you're trying to bench press 315 pounds. You might not have the most success if you just keep trying to bench press 315. You might make more progress trying to build up with lower weights or easier progressions in this case, rather than just trying 315 over and over again. So a similar thing for pull-ups. Now, coming back here, let's say you can do 3 or more pull-ups. And I used to say practice pull-ups more and you'll get better at pull-ups, but you may notice that for some people, your bottleneck might be different than others. For example, you might feel fine. You might not actually feel like you're actually really working your pulling muscles, but you peak out around 3 or 5. You're like, man, that might be your grip. So you want to find what's limiting you, and you may want to put some extra work towards that. If you feel like you can pull, and an easy way to test this is if you have gloves or straps or something, and suddenly you're able to do a lot more pull-ups, then you may want to spend a few minutes after your pull-up set, just dead hanging like this, build up to a couple of minutes. It's more than you think, and it can be a very functional thing. Just do 2 or 3 sets of that, almost as long as you can. Be safe, and it'll make you stronger, you have a better grip, and it may increase the size of your forearm, which is cool for some people. Your grip muscles are in your forearm, not necessarily really in your hand. Now, if it's not your grip, it gets a little bit more interesting because it might be your biceps, lats, some shoulder muscles, but you may notice that, oh man, the top part of this is just a lot harder for you than it is for other people. There are going to be some parts of your range where you are weaker and stronger, but you might have more potential there if you spend some time specializing on it. But that might seem crazy. You might say, well, Hampton, that's different because you're always going to be weaker, maybe at something like near the top part of your range. So why would you train that when it's training the same muscles? Well, your strength is somewhat skill specific. I was going to move around during this take, but I'm not sure now, so I'm just going to hang. So similarly to your grip, after your regular pull sets, if you want to spend some time specializing in this range, doing a few extra sets, you might find it beneficial, and you can use assistance with bands or something if you want. I feel like I ended that take early, but we'll keep it. Now, after you can do 7 pull-ups, maybe 5 good ones, some of you are not going to like this, but you're going to be able to do more pull-ups if you just do them a little bit faster. If you go up a little bit faster, and even as you come down, you don't have to drop, but you can stay controlled and lower a little bit faster. But you might be like, whoa, Hampton, why would you do that? You're messing up your gains. You're touching my tut. How dare you mess with the tut? Well, I didn't mean to touch your tut. Tut is just time under tension, by the way. But if your goal is just to do more pull-ups, you'll probably be able to do more at a relatively higher speed as long as you can maintain control of that speed. But if your goal is muscle growth or strength or other things, then yes, you may want a little bit more control. You may want to adjust. Oh, by the way, you can experiment with hollow body like this or leaning back and going chest to bar. Some find one easier than the other. I'm not sure if there's one that will always do more reps, so just play around with it. But yes, there's all kinds of pull-ups you can try. But if you are doing a contest or going through some kind of physical fitness tests, maybe you have to join the army or something for school, then you may want to change and check your speed. Some of you, some guys perhaps, maybe try to learn more pull-ups so you can get more girls, so you can impress girls. Well, as someone who has done a fair amount of pull-ups, higher than average amount, let me tell you, girls may not be as impressed by pull-ups as you think. You might think that after you can do 20 pull-ups, all the girls will be in your DMs. It's actually much more likely that guys will be in your DMs, and not even in the romantic sense. They'll be asking you like, bro, how'd you do so many pull-ups? Teach me so I can get girls. So then you do teach them, and they get better at pull-ups, and they apply your advice, and they show off, and then other guys message them, and the cycle continues, and that's the reproduction cycle of pull-ups. Science sure is fun. Now, after you get to the point to where you can do, I don't know, like 10, 12, 15 pull-ups, it's usually a little bit more straightforward there. It's usually more bread and butter. You can practice pull-ups and get better by doing more pull-ups. You can probably start to practice more often. Instead of 2 or 3 times a week, you can do 5, maybe 6. Resting every once in a while is helpful, but you might be able to squeeze out a few on competition day or when you're going for a record by doing an isometric warm-up to where you can kind of prime your muscles, for lack of a better term. I've shown this before, but push with this, pull with this. You're warming up this lower arm here. Pull as hard as you can, as hard as you safely can, for a couple of seconds, rest, and then repeat. And do the same with the other arm. You can also try it up here to where you're pushing with the bottom one and pulling with the top. Do a few sets of those, 2 or 3 seconds, I would say, maybe 5 seconds. About 2 sets each pulling arm, you're just priming, you're not really trying to work out. And for some people, this can help their launch phase be a little bit more boom, and they can squeeze out a few more, maybe 2 or 3 more, maybe even more. Now, theoretically, it might be more skill specific if you were to tie yourself down with weight you couldn't quite lift and warm up that way, warm up your lats that way. But I've always done this, and this seems to work. It's a little bit more accessible for me. By the way, there's a free fitness routine on our website, hybridcalisthenics.com/routine. You can get better at pull-ups and other exercises. And you can start from home from almost any fitness level, including beginner. Check it out, it's free. There's also a book and ebook version if you want one, and a mobile app in beta that should be a lot better like next week. Now, let's say you've been doing these for a while and you consider yourself a pull-up Jedi Grandmaster. You can just knock out 15 plus, 20 plus on a regular day, maybe every day, if you just get used to it. Congratulations there, you are awesome, and you're probably also helping pull-ups reproduce. But you might notice that as you practice, you're like, man, I've been doing this for a while, it's been working for months, and I got to 20, 25, but there's a plateau. It's like I'm not really getting past that number. I'm practicing all the time. Why isn't it happening? There is something you can try, and I don't really want to argue with people about why it works. We just know that it sometimes does, and that is you can make a slight change. If you are usually I started changing, but I started to go with this. If you are usually doing them with a neutral grip, like this, with my hands by my side, then you can try a few weeks with underhand grip, like this. I'm going slow because I've hit my head on one of these bars before. I don't recommend it. And yes, you are working very similar muscles with this. And yes, usually strength is somewhat skill specific. So if you want to get better at neutral grip, usually you want to practice neutral grip. But if we started to plateau and we can't break through it, you may want to introduce a slight change. You're working similar muscles, so you're not giving up on it, but you might get better later on when you come back in a few weeks or even a few months. And if that is just too much for you, I'm gonna try to touch my head on this, boop. If that's too much, you're like, Hampton, that's crazy, I was with you up until now, but I don't wanna change what's been working, then instead of changing the grip, which I still recommend a little bit, you wanna try, I'm hesitant to say balance, but I feel like it feels nice to learn different grip positions. You can instead try different rep ranges. Simple way to do this is just to use a weight belt, so you can't do as many reps. Practice that for a few weeks or a few months. Get good at that weight and then come back to unweighted and you should be able to do more. Maybe not even right away when you start back, but don't panic. Give it a few sessions. Software or something. Thank you so much for watching and have a beautiful day, my friend.